Happy Friday, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the AIM Women's Mortgage Network's Growth Series. This series is here for you to educate, inspire, and share your progress as we lift each other up to new levels. On today's show, we have the one and only Christine Beckwith, the President and COO of 2020 Vision for Success Coaching. Well, over the last 2 weeks, we have focused on hiring the right person, training, and creating a phenomenal culture for our teams. But today, we are going to zero in on us and how we can develop ourselves so that we can be our best selves for our families, our teams, and the families that we serve. Christine, thank you so much for being with us. And let's start right at the beginning. How do we stop beating ourselves up and realizing how unique and special we are?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. You know, I'm a huge fan of yours personally and also the Women's Mortgage Network. Hello, everyone out there, and thanks for tuning in today. So there's so much we can do in this area. And I do know we all struggle with the inner voices that we have that tell us sometimes we're not worthy or to slow down or not take an initial step. And I think that's a natural human inclination. And I don't even think it's gender specific. I think that we all as human beings have those inner voices. I think what's important when we're trying to take steps into our future professionally and we're trying to take action is to really, and I always say this and it sounds so vanilla, but to sit down and write down what that plan looks like and what the steps look like. It's so much easier to kind of bravely forge forward considering all things. And I always say also consider what the hiccups might be, consider the worst, best, and base case scenario, BASE. What's the best thing that can come out of something that I do? What's the worst thing that could happen? And what is that level average expectation? And by doing that, we kind of go into something prepared more for anything that can happen. I think all of us have that voice sometimes that is telling us, not to take action, or maybe, all kinds of things are said in our heads. And, 90% of the time, that is just a little bit of internal fear rearing up and trying to hold us back. So we have to fight through that natural inclination.
I love that. And Christine, I 100% agree that I think being prepared kind of squashes that self-doubt, right? Because a lot of times the things that are running through our brains is what if. But when you take the time to break it down, like you said, right? And you kind of say best thing, worst thing, right? Then you kind of go through that. Well, then you're like, okay, I'm prepared. I know the absolute worst thing that can happen. And of course, I want the best thing to happen. So if I feel comfortable, it kind of squashes or, calms that. Okay, so how about getting comfortable with asking for help? Because we all know, listen, none of us are perfect. None of us have all the answers. None of us, are able to do everything. Right. So how do we get comfortable with realizing we can't do it all and that we will need those other people to support us?
Yeah, it really takes a little bit of practice, I think, to reach out. And, I think once you experience really great collaboration, as I became a senior leader in my career, I understood all the brilliance around me. And a lot of times when I had a really, what I thought was a really personal, great idea, and then I would present it to implement it, and I had other experts around me, all of a sudden they would interject even greater ideas that would excite me or make me look at something differently or even consider something I hadn't. And then it would become like that bulletproof, process. I think asking for help in business is one thing. I think asking for help in life is far harder. And so I kind of want to address both. And I want to just say this: we have our inner circle of people when we need to ask for that help. I don't think any of us are impervious to needing help. I don't think there's any shame in needing help. I'm a coach, and so there's a lot of weight there for me to live a life that is very much in the public eye. And of course, try to live a very, honest life and a healthy life and a productive life, and, lots of pressure to perform really, really high. But I'm a human being. And obviously through my career and through my books that I've written, I've shared, and you know this now as one of my co-authors, that, you know, there are times when we need to lean on each other. I will tell you, as I've gotten older, I have really learned the power of my community groups like Women's Mortgage Network. There is something beyond professional support that occurs out of community. I have said on national stages before, you know, why is there a community facet in groups, in trade organizations? Why do we come together to break bread, to be in the same locale? And certainly this year, it's been hard to do that, but I think we're still getting it done in a technological way. And it's so vital. You know, you go back in all the storybooks and all of history books, and you see the communal effects of people coming together and the strength in that unity and power. And so I've gotten more adept at asking for help, seeking help, allowing myself to be human. I call it, I've heard this a lot this year, giving yourself the grace to, you know, ask and know that things don't need to be perfect. I've watched what's happened here, and, you know, the advice that's provided to one another. I have a personal group that I'm in, many who are here that I rely on heavily to give me support, and I give support to as well. So, you know, I just think you have to put it out there. You have to know that there's no judgment. There really isn't. Everybody wants to help each other. I know if somebody uses those words for me, I'm the first to jump in and say, what can I do?
Yeah, and I agree with you, Christine. And you and I grew up in the same era of the mortgage business. And I think we would both agree with years ago, you didn't feel comfortable asking for help and you didn't feel the same sense of community. And you know, obviously, we're both very passionate about Women's Mortgage Network, AIM as a community as a whole, because we've seen the importance, we've seen the value, and we see that it's never been here in the entire time of our history in the mortgage industry. So I agree. The first thing is be active, be supportive, of course, to give and to get, right? It's both. It's a two-way street. So that leads me to my next question. We also see, okay, it's hard to ask for help, but you're in a safe place. I mean, AIM and Women's Mortgage Network has provided that community, which is such a blessing.
Right.
How do we go to someone that we recognize needs help? Because just as much as it's hard for us sometimes to ask for help, we also know that we can also offer so much to the community that we're part of. So how do you also recommend that?
Yeah, so that's tricky. And I've kind of got a good situation, or have a good situation with being a coach, because it allows me to butt in and offer help to a lot of people with unrequested or solicited advice. I think what you're asking is, you know, what are the steps in doing that? I think we do need to do that when we see people around us that need help. And I think it can be as little of a gesture as a private message to somebody. I think sometimes when, you know, we're on social, sometimes we forget the comments are going back and forth on our social threads. And those aren't always the places where we open up. I mean, sometimes it is, but often, you know, that those private conversations, you know, are easier in a private setting. But I will, if I notice somebody that's struggling, I will take the time. And I've had that happen with me as well, by the way. I've, you know, for whatever reason, even when it wasn't warranted, like maybe projected a certain something and then received 2 or 3 texts like, are you okay today? You seem off or something. And I'm like, I don't feel off, but, you know, maybe something was, you know, being read into what was being said. It's as simple as saying it. What I will tell you is don't not take action. Please take action. So many times we see things and we say, you know, don't ask, or it's none of our business, or we come up with a narrative where we don't get involved. And I understand, you know, there's a whole societal thing about, you know, being in the public, helping people that need help. I know because I wrote, you know, a safety book, and the safety book goes along a lot of lines here about when you interject yourself to help other people and that sort of thing. I think with our community that we have and the safe environment that's been built here, I think everybody knows that we are after best interest for each other. And so if you see somebody you think that's struggling or something that said, send them a private message and just say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm here. If you need someone to talk to and you just need an ear or a shoulder, because sometimes we don't want people to solve our problems. We just want to be heard. And I have to remember that too, because I'm a jump in and fix girl. And I sometimes have to slow my own role in as a coach and say, this person's offloading. This person is unloading right now. And that in and of itself is hugely cathartic for the person. I would also give some suggestions for people individually on the topic of needing help or asking for help. You know, the winter months and even specifically right now during the holidays can be a time of great stress for people. This time of year, it gets gloomy in a lot of parts of the country. It also gets cold and we're stuck, we know, from pandemic in our homes. And then the pressures around, you know, worry. I know we both have talked about our parents, Laura. Yeah. And, you know, I know the world at large out there is concerned for their loved ones, people that they're separated from. I have shared on a very personal level. I have an older sister that's in the hospice and she's been there all year and we can't visit her. And so, you know, I share this very personal thing to tell everybody that, you know, now is a really good time to reach out to people that are also silent. I think that, you know, if there's a way
that's a good point, Christine, because it's interesting, right? You can see the people that maybe might be putting something out that are kind of asking for help, but the silent people are the ones that probably need it even more. So what do you recommend? I mean, obviously I'm assuming you're saying do a reach out. Hey, just thinking about you, happy holidays, you know, hope all is well, you and the family. So I know that can certainly go a long way, but is there anything else that you would recommend?
Yeah, you know, I just like to do check-ins. I'll send little emails or texts and just say, hey, checking in. And I use those words, just checking in, because a check-in feels light. It doesn't feel intrusive. And I think it just puts you in a position where, you know, you can ask the question that needs to be asked.
I love that. And you know what, going back to our building our best selves, right? Here we are, we're coming into the new year, right? Holidays are quickly approaching here, and we've got this fresh start of, you know, no matter what, pandemic, not pandemic, there is a sense of renewal when you go into a new year. There's always some fresh excitement of fresh start. I'm doing this. I'm planning on leaning in. So what are some things that we can do to be ready for that fresh start, regardless of whether anything really changes on January 1st or not? You know, what's a good exercise or what are some things that we can do to be prepared for that fresh start?
Yeah, right now I am telling everybody on a professional level to use this time this week and next week to take inventory to their businesses. So what is going on right now in your world, in your business? And we really treat it like metaphorically cleaning a closet. And so what I mean by that is I say, pull out your journals and write 3 pages. And one should be keep, the second one should be eliminate, and the third one we would normally say giveaway, but it should be delegate. And so really what happens in business when we're reflecting on a whole year is we should see the things that brought us profit, great return, further growth, and positive things. And so it should be really easy to identify. I would also tell you, once you figure these lists out, have a team meeting or a meeting with your peers, you know, share what you find in this discovery, because creating this vision and articulating it is really good to do. I'm going to be doing that, and I am doing that with my team. I'm telling them, look, these are the things that went great this year. We're keeping these things. We will continue. And if anything in your keep category, you're going to enhance next year. So you may go deeper, I say, instead of broader. A lot of times we will take something that's going really well and we'll multiply it. What I would recommend you doing is taking the thing that's going really well and go deeper into that thing and do more of it. because that's what's going to really bring stuff back. The eliminate, don't throw things out that don't need to be thrown out. We're not saying create elimination. We're saying if there's something that a good long time has been in place, sometimes we just are riding along and we're spending money on stuff and we have things plugged into our cars, our businesses, and there's just nothing happening there. And we have to clean up, and make room for the next year's add-ons that we may discover along the way. And so sometimes there's an addition by elimination. So there's that. And then finally, in the delegation category or the giveaway category, there's always room for us to grow into a greater version and best use of ourselves. If your highest and best use is running your business, but you are being run by your business, if you are stuck in the ditch of doing a lot of clerical work, for instance, that somebody else could do for you, that would allow you to have that time back to look at your whole operation, make marketing plans, make business plans and whatnot. I say that's a higher, better, more elevated use of your time. So you need to certainly, take heed in doing that. And so it's really, really important to look at all three of those things and then examine those things. And you come up with great stuff for your new year when you do this.
I love that. And as I'm thinking about it, right, and this is just a question that came to me because, listen, 2020 seemed like 2 years, right? It seemed like we lived a long year. So I'm just thinking, do you recommend almost keeping track of something like this as you're going through the year? Because I'm just picturing my brain as you're speaking. I'm like, man, I'm trying to think back of February 2020 and it's a blur. I almost can't even remember February anymore. So what do you recommend that? Yes, that's a great exercise at the end of the year. And I think that's awesome. That's fabulous. And especially to sit down with your team and have your planning going in. But okay, now I'm in January 2021. I have my plan. Do you recommend almost like keeping track and taking note? Like, what do you recommend doing now that you're in the new year for going forward? Because I'm just thinking back, man, I don't know if I can remember what happened first quarter of 2020.
Absolutely. One of the things, I'm going to steal my own thunder, but we give gifts away, electronic stuff, technological stuff during the week of Christmas. And so we're packaging up a nice little gift to our members. And one of the things we give away are trackers. So electronic trackers, they're so valuable, and everyone that has OCD goes nuts for the stuff that we create because we actually have like an Excel expert illustrator create these trackers. And so for us, we are very much about helping people see the seedling grow. And so what I mean by that is everything we do should have, our business plans have daily, weekly, and monthly activities that we should be measuring. One of the very first things that happens when you come to 2020 and we start your business plan is we teach you how to measure your success. And there's 3 ways that we do that. You're always measuring yourself against yourself month over month. You're measuring yourself against the averages on your team, and you're measuring yourself against the number one person in your team or your subset area. Okay. And those look like, daily, weekly measurements of like, okay, did I get closings this month? Did I have this activity? But it's the what we call the invisible forward metrics that tells the story. For instance, you hire a new LO and they're there 3 to 6 months and they haven't had a big pipeline grow yet. And you're kind of wondering, like, is this person working out? Is this person really, someone I should keep? Well, you're only going to know if you're tracking forward metrics, which is all your lead flow activity. So how many calls a day is the LO making? How many realtor conversations are they having or meetings? How many credit pulls did they get? What is their lead to app ratio? What is their app to sub ratio? And so all those things are the seedling that doesn't yet sprout. And so in mortgages, we tend to count the sprouts, right? We tend to say, oh, this LO has, submissions and fundings. Great. but there's a story that's really being told prior to that we need to see. So we provide that tool to our originators that are with us. And by the way, this tool will work for anybody even not originating. If you have a business plan and you're trying to get to a target on your business plan and there's leading activities, we define what those are, put them in the tracker. The tracker is actually something that can be edited, and then you can track daily, weekly. And here's the greatness of this is instead of giving lip service to your manager about, I'm working hard, boss, I'm really doing great, don't cut me from the team because I'm coming, I'm any minute now. You can kind of just cut all that language out and submit the tracker. And if you're doing that, there's no more in December reflecting on February, what was I doing? Because you have the tracking there. And it really becomes a great way with lot less lip service to submit that tracker, maybe weekly on Fridays, to your boss and say, I'm just going to share with you what I've been working on, so that you understand where I'm tracking. It looks like, and it tells a story. It allows us to help. Another thing I'll tell you is marketing. We spend a lot of money on marketing, and a lot of times we don't know when to cut it or when it's working. Right. And that's leading activities as well. If you spend money on a lead funnel and the first month you're doing a lot of phone calls, but there hasn't been a lot of credit pulls, well, the only activity you have is how many calls, how many leads came in, and how many calls you made maybe from it. You know, as you get credit pulls, conversations, and submissions, it begins to tell a story. If you don't track anything and you just spend money on a lead program, and somewhere in month 3, you have the realization, I don't have a submission from this thing, and you have no tracking mechanism on the forward metrics, what ends up happening is you make a decision like, this is not making me money, because you're looking at a finite set of like end metrics. Yeah. And so you really have to be careful as a leader, as a senior leader, having managed a lot of salespeople. These forward metrics became crucial in my management, in my investment of monies, in my expected ROI when I yanked a program or when I kept it and kept trucking along.
Right. And it keeps you accountable. Yeah. Right? It keeps you personally accountable of, wow, I didn't realize that. You're correct, because our minds play tricks with us. Yeah. You know, sometimes something might feel right, like, ooh, you know, look, I have all these leads, but then you realize nothing's converting, you know, or maybe they're not the right borrowers for the programs that you're offering, or it's just something isn't right. So our mind is telling us, oh, this is good. It's really not, you know, when you're actually tracking it and doing it that way. So it's holding us accountable that it's not just our mind or a feeling that's giving us those management tools. I love that. All right, Christine, this was a lot of good nuggets. All right, we're coming into the end of the year. I want what's your advice for us to be our best selves? What's that one thing? What's the one thing we want to throw out to the group of, my wish for you as you're going into 2021 to have the best year ever?
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, when I look at this year, and I know over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be seated somewhere in our homes. We are going to be less traveled than we normally are during the holiday season. We're probably going to see a lot more TV during our downtime. There's going to be a lot of historical video footage that is going to make us reflect on what will be in our future, one of the most historic years in our lives. And when I think about that, I think about the lessons I learned this year, a new business, trying to pivot from a business plan that was no longer effective, losing 27 speaking gigs, you know, having so much disruption to my own business plan in the first quarter and finding my foothold, carrying a team through that. I realized when it all came down to it, that we were living all of this year with some underlying fear always present because of the pandemic, and add the, you know, historic riots and then a controversial presidential campaign, and continuing to see things that are alarming, like death and illness all around us, and the hurt of our loved ones. And the one thing that profoundly stood out to me was the silver lining. And, you know, of course, the mortgage industry has experienced incredible production this year. We've managed to do the American banking industry from our homes, and that's quite incredible. But I think the number one thing is that we've all re-centered and recalibrated our lives to understand that our lives are fragile and that our happiness is truly our greatest ROI that we should be seeking. So I would tell you to go forward in 2021 and really think about what makes you happy, both in business and in your personal life, because you will find a better business plan when it's 80% business focused and still has that 20% calibration on the happiness factor. And that doesn't mean your happiness will be 20% of your plan. It means that in our past lives, 100% of our business plans were focused on business. And we didn't have that piece that really centered the calibration. So I tell everybody, make that part of your business plan this year. What brings you happiness in 2021?
Why, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that why as that component of our business plan. Otherwise it's just business.
That's it.
And we're more than just that.
Right.
Very wise words, Christine. That
Thank
was
you.
the perfect thing to end with. And I thank you so much. Always
Thank
such
you.
great insights. You are awesome. You know, you're near and dear to me. Wishing you all happy holidays and a happy, blessed new year. All the best for 21.
I want to say one thing. Can I say one thing before we go? I have to gush on Laura for just a minute, and I know she's not expecting this, and I'm not doing it for any reason other than to say to all of you that's part of this Women's Mortgage Network, AIM Association has been so incredibly blessed to have Laura this year. Again, not expecting me to say this. I look back on the year that we just had, and I just have to say that at every step throughout this year, this association has benefited from Laura's leadership, her presence, her ability to create this group, and really has taken a ton of her time. I see it. She's changed my life. We wrote a book together this year that was a bestseller, but she's personally showed up in my life. This has been an integral part of my life. All of our businesses have needed her leadership this year. So Laura, I just want to take a moment on behalf of the Women's Mortgage Network. I know I speak for everybody when I say thank you for creating this community for me, for my business, for their businesses, because you are doing incredible and meaningful work.
Well, number one, that wasn't planned. It's not necessary. I truly thank you. And for everyone out there, I hope you know Women's Mortgage Network is in my heart and my soul. Every day that I see what amazing things that the women are supporting each other and being there and guiding, could not ever be more proud to watch the women of this group. I am honored to be part of it, and I thank AIM for everything that they have done to develop all of this community. There's never been an organization as fantastic as what I've seen AIM produce, and I'm forever grateful. All right, on that note, Merry Christmas to everyone. Actually, I'm not saying Merry Christmas yet, because on Monday, we're doing another show, because we're switching back to Mondays, and we figured since next Friday is Christmas, we'll start this Monday. So on Monday, we have Nicole Lynn Lewis. She's actually the CEO of Generation Hope, and we are going to discuss, this is an interesting topic, how important it is for us to look backwards and appreciate the journey and celebrate how far we've come. So on that note, everyone have a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday.